Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us right here on the #1 breakfast show in the world, Morning at NTV. My name is Robin Basiku, and of course we are getting into a very pertinent conversation: online education. You know, when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out around March of 2020, many of our education systems were largely focusing on the physicality of the learners, you know, interacting with their lecturers or teachers in that regard. But then the fact that COVID-19 took center stage, the COVID-19 lockdowns and so forth, learners being thrown away in far-flung areas within the rural settings, and then the teachers also grappling with the effects of COVID-19, and universities had to find a way to reach out to these learners, and the internet was the model through which many of these institutions could reach out to their learners in the respect or spirit of continued learning. But now that we're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic receding, now that we're talking about learners going back into the school setting, are these schools actually giving up on online education? Are they saying, now that we are interacting with the learners physically within the school premises, we do not need the internet anymore? Is that the situation now? That's what we want to interrogate right now on Morning at NTV with Professor, that is Magnus Amajin-Rionvu. He is the Vice Chancellor of Nexus International University. Nexus International University was actually called the
Virtual
University of Africa.
Yeah, Uganda.
Of Uganda. Yes. That is the Virtual University of Uganda. That is in 2011. So I would like to talk about the growth of Nexus International University that actually saw a name change in 2020. Yeah. So what have they been up to since 2011? That is the $64,000 question we would like to unpack with Mr. Magnus Amajin-Rionvu, the Vice Chancellor of Nexus International University. Very good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kans. Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Indeed. Of course, without mincing any words, this university has gone through a name change. Take us back to 2011 when you were still the
Virtual
University of Africa. It's a bit confusing for the viewer. Go ahead.
So in 2011, two great scholars, Professor Michel Lejeune and Professor Dedre Karabine, started the Virtual University of Uganda. And then actually, can I mention here that Professor Lejeune was actually the founder of Uganda Matters University. He was the founder of Uganda Matters University, and when he was about to retire, he started the Virtual University of Uganda with his dear wife, Professor Karabine.
2011.
In 2011, yes. In 2012, we got our first set of students who were mainly postgraduate students doing MPH, Master in Public Health. And then fast forward to 2015, we had our first graduation ceremony. And in 2020, we had a name change to Nexus International University. And with the advent of COVID and the closure of the conventional universities at the time, we decided to introduce the bachelor's program. So our first bachelor's program in business and business administration and management took off in 2020, September 2020. And then the university has kept growing. We are serving 22 students from 22 countries at present. We have over 15 accredited courses by the Uganda National Council for Higher Education, and we have a plethora of short courses which we give to working people, because in the workforce of today, continuous improvement is the word. You know, continuous professional training, development is part of the world today. Technology is changing everything.
Understood. That is Professor Magnus Amajin-Rionvu. Now we're talking about online education right here in Uganda, and of course your people set up shop in 2011. That is actually way before the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, Uganda took a likening to online education recently in 2020 when COVID-19 hit, lockdown measures were biting, and then we needed to expedite more ways to reach out to our learners. But you were actually setting up shop as early as 2011. Talk to us about the challenges that you went through when it comes to operating an online university as early as 2011.
Yes, we kind of saw COVID coming 10 years ago.
Are you sure? Professor Magnus, you saw the pandemic.
So actually, e-learning started in 1998 in the United States. It's about 2 decades and a half old.
Indeed.
In Africa, we were the first licensed university to go totally online from the word go. And it has been very challenging. First of all, it was the challenge of perception. You know, people thought that online education was inferior to conventional education. Then we had the situation of the mentality of if it was not a four-wall classroom, it was not good education.
Why would they think online education was inferior?
Well, it's the perception of our people. And you know, we will gradually grow out of it.
Let's break down the inferiority.
Yes.
Because one too many times, many of our people think that when a learner is behind a laptop and then the teacher is, you know, thrown away maybe in another district also on a laptop, that learner cannot study. That is the inferiority that they talk about. But it's the most expensive thing about online education that we actually love so much. The fact that I'm not with you, but you're still learning. Talk to me about that.
Look, you know, the thing is that online education needs some level of maturity and conviction on part of the learner and those, maybe those that employ him and those that are around him. Now, I'll give you an example. We have a professional trainer in London.
Yes.
During the COVID times, he is a master. He is credited for health and safety in the oil industry. He's been in that profession for 40 years.
Right.
And he works for us at Nexus International University. But he's based in London. And he was training people in Saudi Arabia, right? And he was using our platform in Uganda to do the training. And when the training finished, we issued the certificates. So you see what online education can do?
But why are we still stuck in that conventional way of doing things?
Yes.
The fact that you still have parents who are like, no, me, I'm in a better state, having my learner interact with the teacher in real time.
Yes.
Why are we still stuck in that age?
Okay, so it is a matter of life and a matter of what we do. We are born into classrooms, right? And till today, those classrooms are still existing. Then all of a sudden, you're telling people the classroom can actually come to you in your workplace. The classroom can come to you in your bedroom. It can come to you in your sitting room. That people have found difficult. But those who get into it, you know, they don't want to leave it anymore. You know, the flexibility it offers is invaluable. I had to drive for 1 hour to get to the studio this morning, right? Assuming we are doing a virtual interview.
We just have to send you an email.
That's it, you know, and we would have had this discussion an hour ago and finished, you know. So that's what online education is doing right now.
Saving time.
Yeah, saving time, being flexible, getting to people in underserved areas. Though internet connectivity is still a challenge, the issue of people being able to acquire laptops and buy data is still an issue. But there is much government is doing, and we are asking them to do more.
How big of an issue was it in 2011? The factors that you just mentioned, how big of an issue were they in 2011 vis-a-vis what we are seeing right now? Because if our learners were crying 2 years ago in 2020 that data prices are so high, internet prices are so high, the price of a laptop is so high, what about 2011? That is almost 12 years, 11 years ago.
Yes. So what happened at the time was that, like I said, most of our students at the time we are working, and we are working in places where there was internet access, where there was, you know, availability of the device to access the internet.
So at the time, the university was dealing with the learners who were actually in the work sphere already and were seeking to just add on to their credentials.
That was the target market at the time, you know, and it was rightly so, because we had in 2012 one of our students was from Netherlands. In fact, he was in the embassy of Netherlands, and he came over to actually visit in 2019, shortly before the advent of Corona, you know. And because of the diversity of our students, we noticed that yes, we are meant for more of the world than even the local people at the time. Look, we want to be Africa's global university, right? But we want to be Africa-centric. And therefore, we are trying to drive that change in perception, the availability of internet connectivity, which is improving rapidly in Africa, the issue of acquisition of devices to access the internet. One of the universities in Kampala just last week signed a memorandum of understanding with Stanbic Bank, and they provide students with laptops, and they pay over 3 years. You know, I will encourage that to be extended to other universities, including us. But listen, you know, at Nexus International University, 95% of our students are working. You know, and
which makes it easier.
Which makes it easier to acquire these gadgets and be able to study online. And our own online system as well is not just asynchronous learning where you record videos and put online. No, we have live virtual lectures, and every student should attend at least 75% of it before you qualify for exams.
Break down how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected online education in the last 2 years. Professor Martin.
Well, I will say positively, though it was, there is always an opportunity in every challenge, right? What COVID has done in Africa, apart from the negative side of it, where we lost our loved ones, and God bless them, God rest their soul, it has also brought to us another version of delivering education and learning to our people.
The thing is, this is a version that we already knew of, but we were already shooting down because of maybe the inability of many of these schools to acquire resources to set up that infrastructure for ICT integration to ensure that online learning actually takes hold. Meaning, even before the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, we knew the significance of online education, but then we were actually shooting ourselves down because we couldn't afford the resources. So the affordability, is it making it hard for many of these education institutions to make that switch from the conventional way of doing things to online education?
Okay, so the thing is that there are several modes of education delivery. There is the classroom, there is the distance learning, which has happened over decades and decades ago. Then there is the online learning. Everyone will have a choice of one or the other, right? I'm not going to say at the end of this century everybody will be learning online. That's not going to happen, especially for the sciences and engineering. Now, even for the engineering, there are a lot of e-labs that you can use now to simulate, you know, laboratory practices. Also, even in medicine, there is what is now called telemedicine, is about 20 years old.
Indeed.
You know, and so these things will happen. It has not, but it has not stopped people from still accessing the university campuses.
The big question is, if those were the factors that stopped Africa from getting into online learning or e-learning education, if you will, are we saying that those factors have since, you know, disappeared? They don't exist anymore, and Africa is in a better position to get to online education?
Africa is
or should
in the
we
process.
work towards, you know, resolving those issues first?
We are resolving them. We are resolving them. Look, Collins, is the issue of the issue of online education is not just the internet and so on. There is also the quality assurance part of it, right?
Thank you.
So the regulatory body, the NCHE, they also have to expand their own ability, you know, to actually regulate online education. That is one. Two, government has a part to play. For example, establishing hotspots in universities.
Thank you.
And parks, and we are even in the market malls, because people can stay there and want to take their lectures in a less noisy place.
And SME who also wants to continue with education, I like that.
Why not? You know, so there are so many things that are going to be, you know, internet penetration in Africa is improving. We now have access to smartphones. You can actually take your lectures on the smartphone, you know, because these are live lectures. You can download, you know, recorded lectures and study at your own time. So it is happening at a pace we will want to go better, you know, faster, but it is really happening, and things are going north, and that is the good thing, you know, things are going north. The big telecommunication operators are doing their best to improve their services.
Indeed.
The penetration is getting better. The cost of gadgets are getting lower. You know, and like I said, one of the banks and the universities, we are coming together to see how we can make this accessible to students, and also know that professional education is also a big part of online learning.
Indeed.
In fact, in 2020, about 65 surveyed big businesses in Africa said that they accessed online training as part of their professional development.
Go ahead.
Yes. So it is important that we have a synergy.
Yeah.
Between the technology provision companies,
Indeed.
the curriculum and teaching and learning sector, and then the governance sector, the regulatory sector. You know, they all have to come together, you know, to make online learning worthwhile.
Professor Magnus Amaji Rionwu, he is the Vice Chancellor for Nexus International University. I love the way you've packaged all that information within this short time. Of course, let's talk about quality. How are you ensuring the quality of these online courses?
Right. We are the first licensed online university in Africa, actually. And we have kept pace with development in that area. The first thing that comes to mind when we talk about quality assurance is content. How have we designed our courses? When we started, we went to NCHE and said we were not going subject based, right? We are going modular. And in that modular concept, we make sure that there are three things there: the lecture materials, the extra materials that the students will get to support their learning, and then the recorded and uploaded lectures, which are there. And we created a platform where the student can interact with these materials, the teacher can interact with these materials, and the teacher can interact with the students on and off class.
And of course, online learning is cheap to set up. I mean, you do not need so many blocks in that regard. You can be in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, the whole of Africa, with only one office in Uganda here. That is the beauty of online learning. You can set up shop anywhere. But policy-wise, is government supporting online institutions?
Government is, and they moved very quickly when COVID arrived. Now we struggled before the advent of COVID, to be honest. You know, when COVID arrived, government issued, a policy that we should prioritize first-year students.
Thank you.
On campus, right? The second and third years can study online. That was a very good policy. And I will tell you, there's a country in West Africa. Till this moment, they don't allow their students to get first degrees online. They don't.
Because they don't trust the quality.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it is a matter of a trust or a matter of ignorance, you know, because we have a faculty at Nexus International University that spans almost 12 countries in Europe.
Indeed.
Where we get lecturers, right? So with online learning, you don't need to get a lecturer from Oxford to come and live in Uganda to give his lectures.
Indeed.
He could just sit in his office, and in 1 hour, he's talking to students from 15, 16 countries.
All right.
And that enriches him as a person and enriches the students as well.
That is amazing.
So I think the Ugandan government is moving in the right direction. Indeed. And I'm not patronizing them. It will take time, but we are heading in the right direction.
And indeed, if we do not set up infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, online learning will not take off. So simply we need the input of the central government when it comes to setting up the infrastructure in that regard. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic is receding. This is the $64,000 question, Professor Magnus. And receding, we mean the COVID-19 cases are reducing in that regard. Do you think the romance that we saw towards online education is going to reduce now that COVID-19 is also fizzling out?
I don't think so. I think it's
just going to increase.
We will continue increasing and benefiting from it as well. Indeed. Can you imagine we are, because of online learning, we are removing 100,000 students from Kampala traffic every morning.
Indeed.
Can you imagine that situation?
Indeed.
So why are we going to go back? We are going to hit it.
All right, highly effective Professor Magnus Amajirionu. He is the VC for Nexus International University, formerly the Virtual University of Uganda, that was launched in 2011. That name change came about in 2010. So please take your applications if you haven't actually applied for any university in that regard. They do have so many incentives. Do you offer bursaries and so forth?
Yes, actually, we have a program we are designing for districts just to ease the backlog of university students. So we are asking the districts, if you send us 10 students, you pay for 5, we train 5 for free. And in that regard, we are emphasizing that computer science should take half of that number, and then 2 in business and 2 in development studies. We are actually going to reach out to all the districts, and if we reach out to 135 districts, we can absorb 500 every year because our platform has capacity to host 10,000 students.
Professor Magnus Amajirionu, it was a pleasure speaking to you right here on Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And indeed to you who has been watching the program from 6:30 a.m. up to now. Thank you so much for that undeterred love and support. We do not take that lightly. My name is Romeo Busik. Of course, there's another conversation in the pipeline, largely taking center stage shortly after these messages. We'll be right back.